Oshimbajo says Africa is certainly the next destination for real development as he expresses optimism on the ability of African countries to bridge the existing gap in infrastructure development. The acting president was speaking at an infrastructure summit in Abuja with the theme, The Infrastructure Revolution, organized to mark the 10th anniversary of the African Cooperation.
That had always in the past been, the largest contributors to infrastructure, even when payment sometimes was never really always smooth. But they were able to offer sovereign guarantees or cash support. But today, that is no longer forthcoming.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the federal government is committed to restructuring and repositioning the country to the path to transparency and accountability. The minister stated this when he led some cabinet ministers to present their scorecards at a town hall meeting in Abuja.
We cannot be a hostage to all price or production levels. That means taking back control of our economy and making it productive and delivering value for all of our people. By building an economy that is no longer reliant on income from one commodity, thanks to the ongoing diversification process, we will create a sustainable basis for long-term and inclusive growth for all.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, has urged Nigerians not to panic as the federal government remains committed to ensuring that Ebola disease is not imported into the country. This is sequel to a reported Ebola outbreak in Congo.
When we are at alert, we can prevent importation. We are reactivating and supporting port health services, both at sea, land, and airports. But even when there was no scare about Ebola, the thermal screeners were working. And so on a continuous basis, we were monitoring them without their knowing. We've also set up an emergency task team of 10 people ready to be moved to any part of Nigeria should in case an unwanted case accidentally entered Nigeria.
And that's the update. Join us again at 1 for another update. Bye for now.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Very good morning to you and welcome to another edition of From the National Assembly Senate. On this beautiful Wednesday morning, the 17th of May 2017, on the order paper, there's going to be one report that will be presented, there will be one motion to be moved, and then 10 bills that will be considered for second reading. Now, just when everybody is breathing a sigh of relief that the 2017 budget will be assented to by the acting president anytime from now. Yesterday, at the floor of the Senate, there was some observation by the deputy leader that some statutory corporations have really not submitted their 2017 budget proposal. Now, some people keep thinking now, so how is that going to affect the accent of the 2017 budget? Is it going to, if it is, in what way? If it's not, is in what way? So we just felt we should get one of the principal officers of the National Assembly to shed light on this issue. And we are privileged to have Senator Babakaka Bashir Garbay, who is the Chairman Senate Committee on Rules and Business. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Waziri.
Yes. Yeah. As I have said in the opening, there are some little concern based on what transpired yesterday at the floor of the Senate, that some corporations have not really submitted their 2017 budget report to the National Assembly. How is that going to affect the 2017 passage of the budget?
Thank you, Waziri. It will be recalled that budget 2017 was submitted before the expiration of 2016 financial year. And the budget document was subjected to a lot of discussions, criticisms. Various works were done by committees. And in addition to that, this year 2017 budget was even subjected to public hearing. And we had 3 days of public hearing, all in an effort to have the views and expressions and inputs of civil society, market women, and all strata of the Nigerian society. All were captured in the year 2017 budget. All the views, expressions were encapsulated in the budget document, which was considered and passed on Thursday last week by simultaneously in the House of Representatives and also the Senate. Now, this budget document will be assented to by Mr. President, by the acting president. So, relying under order of the Senate and also under the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, Section 21, subsection 1, 2, and 3, the deputy leader of the Senate, Senator Bala Ibn Na'Allah, drew the attention of the distinguished senators that none of the agencies of government that are revenue generating, that is in the class of the NNPC, the Nigerian Port Authority, NIMASA, and what have you, have not yet submitted their budgets or financial estimates to the National Assembly in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So this Fiscal Responsibility Act is very clear, which states that agencies of government must submit their budget estimates to National Assembly in the end of August of the preceding year, which is very, very clear. So that has not been done. So that has already come off in form of a full-fledged motion, which will be discussed on the floor of the Senate. Today. So resolutions will be taken as a result of this motion. Okay. And the resolution will now be communicated to the executive.
Okay. So as I said, is it going to affect the accent now, the passage of the budget?
No, it is not going to affect the accent because of the fact that we are saying the anomalies must be corrected. Okay. This is a wake-up call so that next year budget estimates will be submitted to the two chambers of the National Assembly by the affected agencies in good time. So it's a wake-up call. All right. Yes.
So are there any interesting, although every motion, every bill is interesting, but is there anything that we should expect today?
Today, being Wednesday, is a day set aside for consideration or we are going to take second reading of bills. That is today, Wednesdays. So we have about 10 bills. The first bill being bill sponsored by Senator Stella Odua on amendment to the NYSC Act, so that those that have graduated from the universities and are undergoing NYSCs, a lot of entrepreneurial, training should be done on them, so that by the time they come out of it, they will be able to now be on their own. So that actually aspect has been emphasized in the bill. So then in addition to that, we also have establishment of entrepreneurial centers in various local government, in all the 774 local governments, sponsored by Senator Mao Ahabunwa. Then we also have very important bill, which is also one of the policy direction of this government, is about anti-corruption fight, or the fight against corruption. So we have a bill sponsored by Senator Mohammed Hassan, Yobe South, on management of crime proceeds. All recoveries made by various anti-grab agencies. How to manage this process of this crime proceeds is captured in the bill sponsored by Senator Mohammed Hassan.
Well, very well. Let's just, since we have whet the appetite of the viewers, let us now take them into the chamber so that they can witness it live and direct. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Waziri. Thank you, viewers.
Well, as I said, we are now going straight into the chambers for the live telecast. Happy viewing. We'll see you on the other side.
Most of these have been sent also by notice on soft copies. And that has been the practice of the, yes, they've been doing that. Maybe you are not yet gone digital, but they've been doing that. We know you have to move away from analog. They've been sending notice papers ahead of time. And some of these bills actually were on other papers that we actually stood down. But I take note of what you said, and I'm sure, okay, Baba Kaka is not here. I would also call him and we'll look into that matter. Yeah, point of order, Senator Dinomalai.
Mr. President, my very respected colleagues, my name is Dino Melaye Kogi West, author anti-dote for corruption. Mr. President, this morning I draw celestial inspiration from Order 43 of our standing rules.
Go ahead and read. Yeah.
A senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor debate arise upon the explanation. The term of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, if you speak the truth, you die. If you lie, you die. I, Dino Melaye, I have chosen to speak the truth and die. Mr. President, when President Muhammadu Buhari took over power at exactly 12:04 hours of the 29th of May 2015, what my party and the President promised Nigerians is absolute respect for the rule of law and also to combat the monster called corruption. Mr. President, this morning I want to bring to the attention of this very historic chamber, quoting from the National Lottery Act 2015, specifically Section 8(1) of that act. By the indulgence of Mr. President, I appeal to read. 8(1) of the Lottery Act stipulates as follows. There shall be for the Commission a Director General, whom shall A, be appointed by the President subject to the confirmation of the Senate. I repeat, be appointed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria subject to the confirmation of the Senate. It is sad to note this morning that a new Director General of the National Lottery Commission have not only been appointed by Mr. President, he has resumed office and have started signing documents and carrying out the functions of the office of the Director General of the National Lottery Commission without referral or confirmation of the Nigerian Senate. Mr. President, This country is not a banana republic. And the executive arm of government cannot choose which law to obey and the one not to obey. As I speak to you this morning, we have before this chamber confirmation for the chairman of the Electric Regulation Commission. We have a request from Mr. President for the confirmation of the board of CBN. We have from the President confirmation for the board of NDDC. We have a request from the President or the executive. The truth is the truth, and this chamber must stand on the truth, and the rule of law must be respected, and we must communicate this misbehavior and rascality to those concerned. The truth have no volume. Mr. President, I have spoken.
Distinguished colleagues, as you know by rules, Senator has come by personal explanation. And as such, it cannot be debated. But the issues are very, very weighty. There are issues that border on constitution, there are issues that border on the rule of law, and it also borders on our democracy and how we practice it. They're very weighty issues. And there are two things we can do, whether we'll come by motion and we debate it, or we just refer this matter to the leader to investigate and take it up. Because the matters are very clear. I mean, we have to first check that truly this gentleman decided on his own to disregard the law and resume. And if that's what he's done, I'm sure when that attention is brought to him, he will stop that nonsense and wait till confirmation. And which is what we will have concluded anyway with the debate. So I think our appeal that let the leader take this issue up, confirm whether what Senator Dino has said is the truth. The law which I have here is very, very clear, and ensure that we seem to be doing the right thing, and that the gentleman should wait until his confirmation before resuming. Leader of the Senate. Point of order. Yeah, Senator Basiakwan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Mr. President, I come under Order 43, and with your permission, may I please read?
Go ahead.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there will be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. Even Mr. President, you have drawn my attention to this project a couple of days ago. I want to solicit the patience of our colleagues and Nigerians that the Joint Committee on Petroleum Resources, Mr. President, will ensure that the interests of Nigerians in line with their medium-term expenditure framework and in line with the vision of this country is achieved and is protected. We will engage the NNPC, Mr. President, and we will definitely report back to the Senate, because we know that on the basis of what we have seen so far, Mr. President, by the time you look at the cost of financing, this project might be in the region of about $5 billion. We want to assure Nigerians that the Joint Committee will ensure that the interest and the commitment of the Federal Administration is not jeopardized in whatever disguise. So I want to bring that to the notice of the Senate, Mr. President, that we should be given much time to engage the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, to ensure that this project meets the yearnings and the aspirations of all Nigerians. I thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Basiakwan. Yeah, again, you came under 43, but I too have received a lot of complaints on this issue, and I think your committee needs to look into it and be able to report back to us to ensure that a project of this magnitude, to ensure that there's due process and that it is not that we will have a cost that will be far higher than what should be expected. So we expect your report back as soon as possible so the matter can be debated and contributed by, and contribution from other members of the Senate. I thank you. Leader of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report of the Conference Committee on Electronic Transaction Bill 2017, SB 15, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Abdul Fattah, come and lead the report, please.
To National Assembly in accordance with the provision of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Mr. President, I wish to withdraw Prayer 2 and ask that we call on the Committee on Finance to ensure compliance based on Prayer 3, sir. Now, distinguished colleagues, I have received a very funny argument that parastatals were not in receipt of the and the law. This is the rule of engagement. So we have a very frontal responsibility to ensure that every person occupying public office, from whose public money is being used to pay his salaries, allowances, and others, is made to conform with democratic tenets of following the rule of law. I'm therefore of the opinion that this is a very straightforward matter and that my colleagues will see the wisdom in ensuring that we observe the rules of engagement between us and those who elected us into this very exalted position of distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And this is my submission. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. I would like to second this motion. And doing so, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me emphasize that this matter is quite serious. It is serious because the matter in question is not only an infraction of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, it is also an affront to our Constitution, which we also want to uphold. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I seek your permission to read Section 1.1 of the Constitution, again, Section 80, 2, 3, and 4 of the Constitution, to emphasize this point. Mr. President, if I have your permission, governance, there cannot be any higher responsibility than fiscal responsibility, because that is the beginning of all evils. We must begin to ensure that we live by the laws we make for ourselves. If we say that ministers are supposed to send the estimates of various agencies under them with the appropriation act of each year, that has to be done. I recall, Mr. President, that in 2016, our President, General Muhammad Buhari, in 2016, sent to this National Assembly the appropriation act for that year together with those estimates. So at a loss, why in 2017, the ministers found it impossible to accompany the same appropriation act of 2017 with those estimates of the agencies under them. We cannot be going forth and back. So I believe that this is time for us to insist under Section 88 that gives us power of oversight, that this has to be done. We make laws here for the good governance of this country, and that is exactly what we have to insist. So I believe that time has come when we are going to insist that all agencies should stop the expenditure of public funds unless it's appropriated in accordance with Section 80 of the Constitution, which we have all sworn to uphold. So it's our responsibility today to ensure that ultimatum is given to agencies under this government to bring these estimates for us to duly appropriate. That is why the Constitution provided for a full-time legislature, because there is enormous work to be done. We are here every day of the week, except maybe Saturdays and Sundays. So it is not a matter that we are unavailable to make the laws. So we are here to make the laws, and we expect that those who are responsible to bring the laws here, as expected by this law, should be able to do so. So that together, we will be able to build a society we will all be proud of. So I want to thank the
He's taken to court, he's taken to tribunal, he's taken to other areas for punishment. Now, the man that will interpret the law and execute it, if he is failing, what do we do and what happens to him? Mr. President, I will refer you to Section 5 of our Constitution, Section 5(1)(b). If you permit me, I read.
Go ahead.
Section 5, 1B of our Constitution. Subject to the provision of this Constitution, the executive powers of the Federation, I'm reading B now, shall extend to the execution and maintenance of this Constitution, all laws made by the National Assembly, and to all matters with respect to which the National Assembly has, for the time being, power to make laws. Now, the executive, one of their major concerns is to maintain and execute the laws. And if the law says that by January or 2 or 3 months before January, the budget of a corporation should be presented to the National
Senatorial District. Mr. President, let me start by thanking the prime mover of this motion and also the Deputy Senate President who have referred to the relevant section of the Constitution concerning this particular motion. But Mr. President, let me bring it to the notice of my colleague that the budget of parastatals of the government put together is bigger than the federal budget laid before the National Assembly. So what we are saying here today is in excess of 10 trillion naira that is in the hands of the parastatals of the federal government. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, it is saddening to note that the same way and the same tradition these parastatals are trying to ensure that year in, year out, they continue to do concerning the passage of these their budgets. Last year, I can vividly recollect that as at September last year, the budget of some of these parastatals were in the Senate and we are passing due to the fact that these agencies have decided to withhold this budget from the National Assembly. Even at that, the budget performance for that particular year, the details were not in that particular budget. It shows ways and manner by which these parastatals have taken this budget and with little or no seriousness attached to it. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the lack of submission of this budget to the Senate as at this time is a deliberate attempt by the parastatals of the government. As we speak, money has been spent on capital projects, on overhead expenses, running to several millions of naira. Mr. President, if I don't even know of any agency, I can confirm to this Senate that the budget of NNPC is in trillions of naira. And at the end of every year of that budget, NNPC will always declare losses. It's a deliberate attempt. And they will build this expenditure on this budget to the extent that there is no way you can be known to all of us here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator James Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. My respected colleagues, James Manager, Delta South. Mr. President, I think one of the features of underdevelopment is our inability to respect laws, rules, and regulations. That is one of the clear features of underdevelopment, which we are passing through as a nation. It is very, very unfortunate. And this particular motion, Mr. President, my respected colleagues, the provision is very clear and unambiguous. 21, 1, 2, and 3. Very, very clear. And of course, with the constitutional provisions read out by the Deputy Senate President, very profusely, 81 to 4. When you combine these two, it is very clear that there's a responsibility on somebody to do what is compulsory for the person to do on behalf of the country. And talking about 21.3, the budgets of all these corporate bodies ought to have accompanied the budget. estimates by Mr. President. Year in, year out, this has and we need to correct it. The time to correct it, no, let there be no distractions, please, my brothers. The time to correct it, in my humble view, is now. It's now. And once it is corrected, and we need to give them a time limit. And we need to do more. There are quite a lot of things that we need to do to ensure that there is compliance with this. And when there is no compliance, then we will be appropriate sanctions, Mr. President. Appropriate sanctions at the end of the day. That can also be done by the National Assembly. So, Mr. President, my respected colleagues, this, in my humble view, is something that we need to look at, and we have to do that on behalf of the nation. And of course, it's something that must be done between the Senate and the House of Reps. And therefore, that synergy is also important. Very, very important, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Senator Barajbre.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barajbre, I represent Kano North. Mr. President, this is a serious aberration. It's a serious aberration because it is slap on our constitution and a slap to the entire people of this country. Because I wonder, I don't know where this kind of thing can be condoned. Where money or monies running to trillions of naira are spent without being budgeted for. Are we Banana Republic? Of course we are not. So there's no way you can condone this kind of practice, which is something that is being done year in, year out, as explained by Senator Solomon. So I don't think it's time for rhetorics. It's time to look at how we can stop this mess. We can stop it so that this will not continue. We should amend our laws to compel these people to submit their budget by January of every year. I remember last year it was submitted towards the end of last year. So all the money that were spent from January to the period they spent, they brought the budget, how can you account for that? How can they account for that? It's a serious infraction, and we must create a way to stop this mess. We cannot allow this to continue. We should find a way. We should think of how we can amend their laws, their various laws, to make sure that they submit their budget in time. This is the only way we can do that. We can solve this problem, but not through reminding them. How long, how far, how can we be reminding them every year? It's not possible. There should be penalty for anyone who goes against the time limit that will be set in the amendment to submit their budgets. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, let us go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Urge the ministers of the concerned agencies to, as a matter of urgency, submit their budget to the National Assembly in accordance with provision of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Senator Gemade.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barnabas Gemade. Responsibility Act. I so move.
Second. Yeah. Pardon? DSP.
Sorry, sir. I think unless we're amending the Fiscal Responsibility Act, because it's talking about ministers, it said those agencies submit to the minister, the minister now forward. So if you now expand it, that will go outside the scope of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So I think our discussion senator need to reconsider his amendment along this line.
Senator Gemade, you're satisfied, yeah? All right, so we take the prayer then. Urge the minister. Yeah, amendment. Yeah, DSP.
Sir, amendment, I would suggest that we change the word urge to request. Request the minister in charge, not the minister of the concern, but the minister in charge of the concerned agencies to, as a matter of urgency, submit their budget to the National Assembly in accordance with the provisions of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, not later than 2 weeks from today.
Further question.
You have a question, yeah? Senator Gamade.
Senator Barnabas Gamade, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, I'm at a loss on this. Matter because the provisions of our Constitution state that it is the President that can communicate appropriation bills to the National Assembly and not ministers. So if we're saying that ministers should cause the thing to be brought to the National Assembly, that to my mind is outside the Constitution of our nation. Are they authorized to lay any budgets in front of this this hallowed chamber? That is the question that we need to look at. And I think if that is the case, we have to state clearly that we urge the President. We have to urge the President. If the executive branch does not sound right, then we have to urge the President to cause these things to be laid, because nobody else has the right to lay any budget in front of National Assembly.
Okay, so we have an amendment to that then, which will read, urge the President as a matter of urgency to submit the budget of parasites and agencies, to the National Assembly in accordance with provision of Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, not later than 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks? Not later than 2 weeks. Can we get a seconder? Yeah, Senator Hope Uzodimma.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Hope Uzodimma. I represent Imo West. I rise to second the motion as amended. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, amendment to prayer 1, urge the President as a matter of urgency to submit the budget of the parasites and agencies to the National Assembly in accordance with provisions of Section 21 Fiscal Responsibility Act, not later than 2 weeks. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2 has been stepped down. Yes. We have finished that, but let's simplify this matter.
I think I have a responsibility to guide this senator. And my responsibility stems from the fact that where a law imposes a duty on a named person, you cannot transfer that duty to another person. That's true, sir. That's the position of the law, sir. So by the Physical Responsibility Act, Section 21, in specific, it refers to the minister. And
even the national budget, the annual budget that we get, it comes from the different MDGs, and then from them to the ministers, and the ministers to, before it comes to the Senate. So what the Deputy Senate President is saying, I think it's implied. What I think we are in order. It's implied.
We are not there.
It's implied.
We are not there because
it's implied.
I don't want to argue too much.
The superficial issues are now overriding the major issue. The major issue is let the budget be submitted within 2 weeks. I think that's yeah. Second prayer, call on the Committee on Finance to ensure compliance. So I'll put the question in. Call on the Committee on Finance to ensure compliance. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Distinguished colleagues, additional prayer, DSP.
Order. Additional prayer. So because this is a true violation of the Constitution, especially Section 80, and we cannot watch the Constitution to be in gross violation consistently. So I think we should also reach a conclusion that further expenditure
on their current estimate of the agencies concerned should stop forthwith until they comply with the resolution to bring this within 2 weeks. So they don't need to spend any money further until they comply with this resolution.
What is the prayer? Can you phrase the prayer?
That the agencies concerned, the parastatals and agencies concerned, should stop further expenditure on the estimates for the current year until they comply with the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Any seconder to this? Yes, Senator Gobri.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I stand to second a motion heavily moved by His Excellency, the DSP. So I so second. But you see, there is something, sir, in addition to that, sir. No.
Distinguished colleagues, let me put the question. Additional prayer that all agencies and parastatals should stop. Did you say further expenditure, capital expenditure? Should stop further capital expenditure in the current year until they comply with the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Constitution. Those in favor of this additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer. Yeah, additional prayer, Senator Gobri.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. It is important to understand that the committees of the various committee members.
Truly, this motion is at the heart of this fight against corruption. And it's very, very important, as we've seen, that independent revenue, the amount of money independent even exceeds how much we get on oil revenue. So it's a huge amount to our revenue line. And if we are talking about we're looking for money to fund projects, hospitals, education, etc., this is where the source of the revenue are. And I cannot see how we can continue in a society where we are fighting corruption, where people will be spending money without approval, without appropriation. It must stop, it will stop, and it's going to stop from now. Clearly, we have made a position that based on this amendment, this motion, they must get the budget into us in 2 weeks. And committee chairman, I want to appeal that once we get the budget on our own part as well, let us ensure that we do it properly, very diligently, and try and turn it around as quick as possible. I thank you all. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the second reading of the National Youth Service Corps Amendment Bill 2016. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 24th November 2015. Mr. President, you may wish to invite...
Order! Order!
Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Stella Odua to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Stella Odua.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, my name is Senator Stella Odua. I represent Anambra North. Mr. President, may I lead this debate on National Youth Service? Mr. President, my dear colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which seeks to amend the NYSC Act to provide for compulsory acquisition of vocational skills by COP members. The bill was read for the first time in this chamber on the 24th of November 2015. Mr. President, the Mr. President include securing future for core members through acquisition of relevant skills towards business success, learning in a conducive environment with a state-of-the-art teaching materials, maximizing their service here, and setting the stage for a fulfilling future. Then providing access to several funding windows towards starting or improving their business, generating substantial resources through harnessing their potentials, learning to develop a winning and investor-ready business plan, among others. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I seek to introduce the idea of compulsory vocational skill acquisition by core members to develop them in some skill in order to become employers of labor after their service here. The period of NYSC ought to be for them to be prepared to rediscover their passions, their innate skills, and not to dwell on their certificates as is presently being done. They need to be able to provide food on their various tables. Rather, it is the skills and the talents that will equip them to do that. There are many this law. The enactment of this into law will equip our graduates with practical skills during the service year, and this will go a very long way in reducing the number of graduates seeking for few or non-available civil service jobs. Mr. President, dear colleagues, national economy. I therefore urge you all to please support this bill for second reading. Mr. President, I also will want to mention here that this bill will need to go to Constitutional Amendments Committee for the process to complete, should this bill be passed. And I have done that with the chairman of the committee.
To acquire skills that will make them live on their own after leaving service. But I think shortly after that, it has always remained the program of NYSC to just send people, some of them, to even places where they have no relevance. We've seen medical doctors being posted to ministries. We've seen engineers
coming with this bill, which, if properly handled, will give answer to the problem of the unemployment in this country. Mr. President, today, thousands upon thousands of Nigerian youths complete service here, and they roam the streets. And after roaming for 1, 2, 3 years without finding anything, most of them end up getting into crimes and doing anything at all to earn a living. That is not the way it should be, Mr. President. Mr. President, in the years past, university education meant employment. It meant having a car, meant having a house. On graduation, our people, some of us them are here, who when they were doing their last exam in the university, they will have people who are inviting them for interviews, sometimes inside the university. But times have changed. Today, university education is not equal to employment. It's not, it doesn't satisfy all those things their parents had in the past. So we have to change. We have to change. And in changing, Mr. President, we have to decide to equip these youths with skills outside their having their certificate. Paper qualification is not just enough. So I support the intendment of the mover of this bill, Mrs. Odua, that we have to encourage these people during the service year. Instead of just coming there and moving, not minding your background, you go and teach. You do one thing or the other. It should not be so. This 1 year should be used to teach these people essentially what they should be doing in case they don't have paid employment. If we take that time, instead give them just 2 months or 3 months to visit anywhere and work. But during the service year, retain them at the orientation camp. Bring people, master craftsmen, to teach them what they should do in case you don't have employment. If they now learn all those things.
Senator Nelson, that's no information. That's all right. Distinguished colleagues, I'll put the questions. Those in favor that this bill be read the second time, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the National Youth Service Corps Act, Cap N84, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for the free and compulsory acquisition of vocational skills by corps members and for such related matters 2016, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the National Youth Service Corps Act, Cap N84, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for free and compulsory acquisition of vocational skills by corps members and for such related matters. 2017, is it? 2017, second reading. This bill is referred to the Constitutional Review Committee and for further legislative work. Let me thank Senator Stella Odua for this bill, very important bill. As we all know, when the NYSC was introduced, then the focus was integration, unity, and understanding. I think the scheme needs to also adapt to the present modern times where issue of vocational skills are very important. So I think this will go a long way in supporting our youth in the area of vocational skill acquisition. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Federal Entrepreneurship Centers Establishment ETC Bill 2017. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 12 July 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Mao Ohuwabunwa to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Mao Ohuwabunwa.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Mao Ohuwabunwa, representing the entire people of Abia, North Senatorial District of Abia State. Mr. President, I want to thank you for the opportunity to lead this debate on this all-important bill that have been coming for a while now. Nigerians unemployed youths are made up of untrained and uneducated youths, and they live in the rural population of our states, and with women accounting for 50% of such unemployed youths. The daunting statistics of uneducated, untrained, and unemployed Nigerian youth is equally made more complex by the high rate of about 71% of unemployed among youth that graduate from the tertiary institutions of our nation. Even that rate of graduate unemployment seems to be growing at a rate of 5.6%, while the few job creation initiatives of the federal government have fallen by 69% in recent times. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, while the unemployment scenario of Nigerian youth today may appear daunting, no one shares any doubt that entrepreneurship remains the single sure engine of tapping the potentials open to all those that are unemployed, whether they be untrained, uneducated, educated, or poorly trained, or idle manpower. The ideal resolution lies in our collective ability, Mr. President, to identify an entrepreneurship training platform that can be assessed at the point of need so as to assist unemployed gain self-sustenance within a sustainable environment. Tracking our youth unemployment status, therefore, calls for a strategic policy trust that is driven by an act of parliament and empowered to consistently develop ready-made entrepreneurs at the local government areas so that our unemployed youth find avenues of developing skills that match opportunities available in the economic markets around their locality. This bill, which seeks to establish a federal entrepreneurship center in all the local governments of the Federation, will fill the necessary gap between unemployed youths and appropriate skill acquisition for sustained living. When passed into law, Mr. President, it will equally give legal teeth to the expectations of the federal government job creation initiatives as envisaged from N-Power, Graduate Internship Scheme GIS, National National Director for Development, Small, Medium-Scale Enterprises, so on and so forth. The bill provides for the training and retraining of unemployed youth in needed skills, and at the point of need, this, I believe, will make a world of difference to investors and high net worth individuals operating within the locations of the entrepreneurship centers. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I seek your support so that this bill is passed into law. This act, for all intents and purposes, is sure to become the economic laser, the rare formula and panacea which our various governments at all levels have for long been seeking to address the growing problem of youth unemployment. This bill went well. Mr. President, I move that this bill should pass second reading. There is no gainsaying the facts, and from the discussion in passing the last bill, that unemployment has become the bane of our society, this country today. And like I've said, it's not just only setting up a skill acquisition center. This is an entrepreneurship center, and that will attract its students or participants from the locality. And we also know that we are going further, not just to have a general entrepreneurship center. These centers will be specialized to the resources available within the locality. And by so doing, it will, to a large extent, reduce urban migration. So that within the locality, there are issues, there are resources, and you train people, train youth in accordance, even in addition to those who have graduated. So, Mr. President, it's my plea with my colleagues that they should support this bill to go through the second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Samego.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Sam Egu, representing Ebony North. Mr. President, I wish to speak on, with regards to this debate on entrepreneurial development centers, and to inform this Senate that we already have these centers under SMEDAN, which is under the Ministry of Industries. As I'm talking to us now, we have 6 centers, 6 zonal centers in this country, each representing each senatorial zone, each geopolitical zone. And during our oversight function about a month ago,
government level, I don't So you're not supporting them, really? I think no. Why I say that, distinguished senator, I'm trying to protect you. I think we should look at some of these bills when we speak and take sentiment, and let's look at it for the interest of the bill, not looking at the sponsor. You know, he's a very popular senator. We don't want to go against it. But I think, because you have made a good point. I mean, if we cannot manage zona, how are we going to manage local government? But let's let me take more contribution. Senator Shiusani.
Mr. President, I stand as Comrade Senator Shiusani. Mr. President, I share the concern of Senator Sam Egu in the very sense that it's not only SMEDAN that has skill acquisition centers and entrepreneurship centers. The CBN has it, and also ND, and they have not been working. So I think what we can do with this proposal under this bill is to see the possibility of harmonizing all these things. Billions of tax-based money have been pumped in every year for skill acquisition and entrepreneurship programs. But the output from such kind of program is not commensurate with the money that is being pumped in. It is true, as a nation of 170 million people, we have a growing army of unemployed. And we must be serious about it. That these millions of young people that roam about in the street poses a serious security problem to the peace, unity, and stability of this country. And these forces of unemployed will serve as a force for revolution in this country if care is not taken. The only phenomenon that has been able to provide jobs for everyone is politics. And I believe if there is anything we can do, employ everyone. But if we can't do it, we should know there is a consequences for that. So as far as I'm concerned, this bill stands against the reality, but it is also a good idea. But unfortunately, like I've said, SMEDAN are on it, CBN are on it, ND are on it. So as far as I'm concerned, the issues that have been raised that will impede the success of this program should also be part of the consideration before we take a decision on this bill. Thank you very much.
Senator Aido.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Atai Aidoko Ali. I represent Kogi East. Mr. President, I rise to support this motion, and this bill. Mr. President, there's no doubt that the issue of unemployment, especially youth unemployment in this country, is one of our greatest challenges. This has resulted to all sorts of vices by our youth. Mr. President, the reasons given by the two earlier speakers, Senator Samegu and Senator Shehu-Sani, I believe are the more reasons why we should support this bill and allow this bill to go to second reading where it will be developed properly. I say this because, Mr. President, the issues raised by the first speaker that you have centers, entrepreneurship centers in the 6 geopolitical zones. Mr. President, the aim of this bill cannot be achieved because if you have a center, for instance, for geopolitical zone you have in Nasarawa, I don't know how you can bring entrepreneurs from my village, for instance, from Olamaboro local government in Kogi State, to come to Nasarawa to the skill acquisition center. The patronage will be low because the cost of accommodating them, the cost of infrastructure, logistics, to keep them in a zone, in a place far from where they are, is very enormous and expensive. So I believe that if we organize this and make it close to the people, the unemployment is local. and we make it close to where these youths reside, I think it will make this thing more effective and efficient. So I think the argument he has is even in support of this bill, to the extent that if we create this, Mr. President, I believe that this bill, if enacted, Mr. President, there are so many wastages. For instance, since the inception of SDGs, since my years in the National Assembly, we have skill acquisition centers that we create. There's no local government in this country that SDG has not built a skill acquisition center. It is not utilized. Some of them are just abandoned. Nobody uses them. They will complete the project and abandon them. But when you have this kind of project, these acts will establish an agency that will take over all these things and harmonize them. There's no control over all these rural acquisition centers. Because of that, Mr. President, we in the Committee of SDG, we have decided to take a general view of all these skill acquisition centers that are abandoned in this country. As a matter of fact, we have sent letters to every senator to send our staffs to go and take stock of all agencies, all SDG projects in our various constituencies with the view of especially looking at the skill acquisition centers where we will now harmonize with NDE and all other agencies to work out how these things will be beneficial to to resolve the unemployment issue. So I believe that any senator that has not gotten this information, I believe all our offices have been served with this information. We need
and for other matters connected thereto, 2017, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of federal entrepreneurship centers at local government areas and for other matters connected thereto, 2017, second reading taken. This bill is referred to the Committee on Industry and State and Local Government. Report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is
over. I think I don't know about you, but I'm jittery. So we felt that we should talk to the Chairman Senate Committee on ICT and Cybercrime, Senator Buhari Abdul Fattah, representing Oyo North. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. What is your the conference committee report on?
Well, it's on the. If you notice, in the last couple of weeks, there have been attacks everywhere and there. And then we decided to take a proactive action, even before now, to give the consumer.
I understand the central bank has to come in to rectify some anomaly rumors going on around. What exactly is happening?
Yes, it's normal. The attack has been very, very porous. There is this software these people have discovered now in the cyber space that is called Lazarus. Okay. They use it to hack. In fact, you know one funny thing? It happened in the United States. Okay. A company that was hacked, and then they now dropped their telephone number. So they called them. When they called them, the people that hacked it now told the company that you can even go to this social company. They were now giving what is called a referral. Go and ask them about us. You pay the ransom. When you pay the ransom, we'll give you the code. They paid and they gave them the ransom, and then they use the code and they open again. So you can now see the rate is going. Somebody can just be at the corner of his house and hack you. So the only thing we do or we need to do now is for us to make sure we secure our space. That's one of the reasons why we are bringing in a motion on Tuesday to call the attention of all the security agents and to call the attention of all the banks, particularly Central Bank, to improve on their software or on their security so that people can have confidence. Because when these people strike, it's disaster.
Well, we pray that will not happen.
Amen.
Thank you very much indeed for your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, viewers, that is how far we can go on this edition of From the National Assembly Senate. May the